Hi, friends. Fatine here. Well, I got a text last night and she said, Fatine, you got to do a video to talk about vote splitting, talk about the life issue. I've got all these folks that have questions that are very concerned about the future of our nation. And I just don't know what to tell them, don't know what to say. We had a wonderful conversation. And I promised this person that I would do a quick video. So here I am. One of the things asked was, is vote splitting a real thing? So, what is vote splitting? First of all, vote splitting is when there are people that have the same sort of mindset, the same things that they care about, and one group of people votes for one party, group of people votes for another party, and because of that, they split the value vote on the issues that they care about, and somebody who completely disagrees with them and would advance agendas that they are completely opposed to shoots up the middle and they win. That is called a vote split, when your good intention actually creates the exact opposite political result. And to answer the question, is vote splitting a real thing in Canada or a real possibility? The answer is absolutely. It actually happens every single election. The most vivid example that I have is our dear friend Harold Albrecht. He was a member of parliament. As a matter of fact, one of the best members of parliament that I ever met. Just an incredible man, a man of integrity, hard work ethic, loyal, just incredible. And as a matter of fact, if my memory's serving me right, I think right around the time of near the end of his tenure, he was actually working very hard to bring forward a national action plan to help people that struggle with suicide. And in Harold's riding, the last time that he ran, he lost by 365 votes. And there was another candidate that was running for the PPC in that same riding that, as I understand it, held a lot of the same values that Harold held. And that individual got 790 votes, if I'm remembering correctly. And so those 790 votes, if that candidate, the PPC, who basically had the same values, was in it for the same reason, if those 790 votes would have went to Harold instead, then Harold would still be a member of parliament today. And for those of you that are watching this that are believers, I want to let you know Harold was a believer. And as a matter of fact, he was very involved with the weekly prayer gathering on Parliament. And every single time there was a vote in the House of Commons or a conversation in the caucus at the time on important issues that many people in the faith community would care about, Harold was right there bringing his voice and representing that viewpoint, which was also the viewpoint of the people, the majority of the people in his riding. And so, yes, vote splitting is a very real thing, and you need to honestly beware. The problem is you never know for sure when it's going to happen. And so this is why I always encourage people, and those that I've chatted with over the years that are just absolutely brilliant in political strategy have always said, find the person that most represents your views and values and vote for the person that is in the most winnable position. And so if you have two candidates, they both kind of represent your views and values, then make sure you vote for the one that has the highest chance to win. They're representing the party. Now, I want to speak to those of you that have a primary concern of regarding the life issue, the issue of abortion. We get this question a lot. Who should I vote for if this is the thing that I am most concerned about? A lot of people don't know this in Canada. The average Canadian, even a lot of pro-life Canadians don't know this, that in Canada right now, there are absolutely no laws on abortion. Abortion is regulated provincially. And so there are different restrictions, maybe at the provincial level when it comes to funding and access. But federally, it is open season. And so what I mean by that is you can abort a child right up until 40 weeks, right up until birth. My babies were born at 36 and 38 weeks. My babies had no legal protection at that time. And so if I would have decided to abort my children at that time, it would have been legal. And if I could find somebody in Canada who would do it. There would have been no hindrance to that legally. So a lot of people don't know that, but when they find that out, even the most hardcore pro-choicers who find this out are usually a little bit uncomfortable with it and may say, "Oh, well, you probably shouldn't be aborting a baby that can survive outside of its mother's body and is completely adoptable." And many medical professionals would agree that abortion at that phase is more dangerous than actually giving birth. So anyway, I'm kind of rambling a bit. So, but if this issue is your primary issue, there are a few things to consider. Right now, this really is a two-party race. We know that. All the polls are showing that. And in the two lead parties, so you've got the Liberals and the Conservatives, the Liberals under Justin Trudeau basically said if you were pro-life, you couldn't even run for the party. Okay. I do know firsthand that that is still a part of the vetting process. And so it is very, very difficult for somebody who has pro-life values to even exist in a position of influence in the Liberal Party. So there's that. In the Conservative Party, it's a little bit of a different dynamic. The Conservatives do have a tradition of always allowing a free vote on issues of moral conscience. Pierre Poilievre hasn't said that expressly in this situation, but what he has said on the life issue is that he will support adoption. He will work hard to bring down the cost of living to make it easier for families to choose to have children. He has said that he will not personally, that his government will not bring forward any restrictions on abortion, but his party will resist the expansion of medical assistance in dying. Now, this is a significant thing because there is a possibility that medical assistance in dying for the mentally vulnerable, for the depressed, and even possibly for children could be expanded once again in 2027. And when I say once again, I mean medical assistance in dying could be expanded once again. Even the UN, I believe there was a declaration for the rights of persons with disabilities that strongly advised against this. But this is one of the things that's at stake. So Pierre Poilievre has said that he will not expand medical assistance in dying to the mentally vulnerable and to children. I don't believe Mark Carney has given a clear viewpoint on that, but we do know that the Liberal Party has been pushing in this direction. The other thing is charitable status for pro-life organizations. This is another issue for those that vote based on this issue. So the Liberal Party of Canada has or did under Justin Trudeau say that they would be revoking the charitable status for organizations that they say promote misinformation. So maybe, you have a pregnancy care center that is talking about the possible negative impacts of abortion. And the government might say, well, you can't talk about that because of this, that, or the other thing. It doesn't line up with how the government thinks about that issue. And so there is a possibility that those organizations could start to lose their charitable status. This is the trajectory of the Liberal government. In addition to this, many of you know this, in December, there was a standing committee on finance, and that committee tabled a report that recommended that charitable status for faith-based organizations should be considered to be nullified, that could no longer be a charitable objective. So that would mean that churches, Christian ministries, but also synagogues, Sikh temples, these types of organizations would cease to have charitable status. Studies show that for every $1 that is donated to one of these faith-based organizations, there's more than a $3 benefit back to the immediate community around these organizations. And so this would not be a smart move economically because the government would have to sort of compensate for those lost services from the charitable sector. So that's not really smart, but it is something that is at least being considered. It was put forward as a recommendation. In order to even make it in the report, it had to be voted on by the committee members. And as I understand it, the only members of that committee that voted against that recommendation were Conservative members of that committee. So these are faith-based issues. These are pro-life issues in the sense that if you care about this, the only one of the two lead parties that has expressively said that they are opposed to going after charitable status for pro-life organizations is the Conservative Party. So there's two dramatic differences there, even though Pierre Poilievre himself has said that he's pro-choice and will not bring forward laws to restrict abortion even for fully formed children in the womb. So that's what it is. That's where it's at. And so this is how I would suggest that you possibly consider. So there are other parties that are 100% pro-life. You know, you've got the Christian Heritage Party. You have the United Party of Canada, a brand new party. That party is only running 16 candidates. So 95% of Canadians can't vote for that party anyway, but you might be in one of those 5% of the ridings that can. These organizations have said that they are expressively pro-life. The PPC, that's going to be one where you're candidate by candidate. Some of your candidates are going to be pro-life. Some of them aren't going to be pro-life. So you're going to have to get to know the candidate. And so I do know that Maxime Bernier has said different things on this front that have had a pro-life perspective. But if you are in a swing riding right now, it is coming down. The result of this election is most likely coming down to 30 to 40 swing ridings. This has actually been the situation in the last few federal elections where we are right here again. And so I predict that it will come down to about 50,000 votes spread out over those 30 to 40 ridings. In 2021, there was one race that was won and lost by only 12 votes. And so that's how tight some of these swing ridings can be. So if you are in one of these key swing ridings, and again, you kind of never know. Sometimes some of them are really obvious, but some of them actually are a surprise. So you might think you're not in a swing riding, but on election day, it actually shakes down that way. We shall see. There is a chance that voting for one of these other parties, whether that's the PPC, the United Party of Canada, or the Christian Heritage Party, could cause a Liberal candidate to come up the middle. Now, I'm just giving you information here. I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I will give you information and I will give you perspective that perhaps can inform your wisdom. And so basically, what I would say, if you are a pro-life voter and that is your plumb line, if you vote for the Conservative Party, yes, you are voting for a leader who has said that he's not going to change the law, but you also are voting for a party that has said, and a leader that has said that they will not expand medical assistance in dying and they will support pro-life organizations. So those are pro-life votes in that sense. That's what you're voting for. If you vote for one of the purist parties on this issue, and you are part of the reason that a Liberal candidate gets through, you were a part of creating the dynamic that allowed a party to win that is opposed to charitable status for certain pro-life organizations, will not allow a pro-life member of parliament in their caucus, at least not very easily, and will also expand medical assistance in dying, possibly expand medical assistance in dying for the mentally vulnerable and for children. So what you need to do is take a step back, and you need to take a step back. And as my husband would say, you got to play the inning that you're in. You can't play the fourth quarter when you're in the first quarter. You got to say, okay, what is actually at stake? What is actually at play in this part of the quote unquote political game? Though I don't think politics is a game because we're dealing with people's lives. But, you have to look at where we're at. And so if you want to ensure that medical assistance in dying is not expanded, if you want to ensure that pro-life charities are protected and possibly all faith-based charities protected, then your vote should be pretty clear. You should vote for the Conservative Party. If your conscience does not allow you to do that because of Pierre Poilievre's position on life, then you need to stand with authenticity with your conscience intact. But just be warned that you may be a part of the reason that there is a party that gets through that really doesn't reflect your values, like in the Harold Albrecht situation, where he lost by 365 votes because there were 790 votes that went to a party that had no chance of winning. Now, it might be a good conversation for the leaders of these smaller parties to have on the other side of this election about whether or not the PPC, the United Party of Canada, and the CHP could maybe come together into one larger party that could represent the views and values. But we're just not there. This is not the quarter that we're in. And so we need to be honest about that, and you need to vote in accordance with what is the reality of the moment that we're in. So the other thing that I want to mention too, and this is just for those of you that are in that sort of purist mindset, and I don't fault anybody who's one way or another. You stand before your conscience on this one. But do realize that if you bank at any of the major banks in Canada, if you use a credit card, if you shop at pretty much any major vendor, I don't know everything that everybody funds, but if you drink Starbucks, if you use certain cosmetics, you are supporting abortion. And so if you're going to be a purist, then you also really need to evaluate every area of your life. And if you're banking at any of the five banks, you most likely are supporting things that, excuse me, I got a little tickle in my throat. You most likely are supporting things that you're actually opposed to. And so it's important to think about these things and understand that integrity means integrity across the board. We live in a world that functions with a lot of different ecosystems. There are a lot of different dynamics, a lot of different things that we interface with that may not necessarily reflect our views and values. And so the question is do we just pull out of it all, or do we stay present so that we can bring perhaps understanding and perspective? I encourage you to be love wherever you go, impact your community through service, through love and kindness, and, consider some of these things as you consider how you vote. On that note, I will just land it there and say that I've taken personally some time to really think through my choices, my decision in this regard. And I personally, I'm choosing to play the inning that I find myself in right now. I'm choosing to fight for the things that are winnable. So I hope that helps you guys. Yes, vote splitting is real for those that just wanted a bottom line. And if you have another question, feel free to inbox me. I don't know if I'll get to it, but I'll always try. Okay. Love you guys so much. Check out formycanada.com if you want a voter's guide on some of the other issues. Please consider signing up to volunteer in one of those critical swing ridings. It will come down to just a few people signing up to volunteer. I lost by 224 votes in the election that I ran in last year provincially, and one more volunteer helping out in those final days would have made a really big difference and probably would have put me over the victory line. So you really can make a difference. Your vote matters, your presence matters, and your time. Every one of us has a couple hours that we can give, and your time will really make a big difference in this final zone. So go to formycanada.com. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope that was helpful. Hi friends, Faye Teen here. I know we're all aware that we are in a very critical window for our nation. Voting in this election is already open, and the final day to cast your ballot is April the 28th. Advanced polls are also available from the 18th to the 21st, so plan to get out there and mark your ballot. But I want to talk about what's at stake. As believers, we are called to be salt and light, right? So this election honestly will determine the future of so much. Things like our national unity, possibly whether or not churches and Christian ministries can keep their charitable status. If a church loses their status, that means they lose all of their assets, including their buildings and their bank accounts. This election could determine whether or not we uphold freedom of speech, parental rights, and, of course, our relationship with Israel. It will also impact the direction of federal spending, our debt, responses to things like rising crime in the urban centers, and the potential expansion of medical assistance in dying, even to those who are struggling with depression and mental illness, or for minors. This is not a moment to sit back. It's a time to pray, yes, and vote, yes, but more than that, get involved by volunteering. Just a handful of volunteers in key swing ridings could determine the outcome of this entire election, and volunteers on the ground will make all the difference. Your presence, even just a few hours, really matters right now. So to find out where the parties stand on all these issues, or to sign up to volunteer for someone in a battle zone that reflects our values, visit formycanada.com today. Let's stand together for truth, for life, and for the future of Canada. Let's stand for our kids and for our grandkids. God bless you, and God bless Canada. Share this with your friends.